My Aunt Flora was a remarkable woman and a woman of great faith. Thankfully so, because her life was a living hell. Most of us would never have to deal with most of what she had to deal with. And if you raised the issue about how hard her life had been, she would simply brush it off and remind us that there were others whose lives were much worse than hers. At age 98, she was diagnosed with cancer. The doctors were not going to perform surgery, not at her age, but couldn't find a health reason not to. And so surgery was performed and chemo, and she recovered very well. However, shortly after she returned to her apartment where she lived on her own, she fell and broke her hip. It was at that point the doctors put their foot down and said she could not remain alone. She would have to enter a nursing facility. This was devastating for my Aunt Flora. When we talked about it, she was all but in tears. But she finished our conversation with these words: "Well, honey, I guess the Lord has something up his sleeve. We'll just have to see what that is." About 3 weeks later, we talked again, and she was in a totally different mood. Her excitement was bursting. She had discovered that the facility was full of old people, and they simply needed help. And so she took it upon herself to organize what she called the afternoon social hour. And at 2 o'clock, she would gather the residents around the piano, and she would play all of their old favorite songs. They would tell stories. They would share writings and poetry. My Aunt Flora was a marvelous poet. And they found that time very refreshing, and my Aunt Flora found a mission and a vision for her future. I happened to be with her on her 100th birthday. My cousin and I were sitting there talking with her, and she said, "Oh, dearies, I'm so glad you're here, because those older people don't understand. I've been reading, and there's been this talk about personal computers. And I'm trying to figure out if I should get one or not. You know, they are the wave of the future, and I want to be prepared." My cousin and I just smiled. How typical of Aunt Flora, never letting the grass grow under her. She died peacefully shortly after her 101st birthday. She taught me many things over the years, but perhaps the greatest gift I received from her was her prayer that she prayed every morning upon arising. It was a simple prayer. It went like this: "Okay, Lord, what adventure do you have for me today? We can do this. I'm ready." Believe me, these last few weeks, that's been my morning prayer, because every day has been an adventure. And those adventures continue in earnest these days as we transition. What does it mean now for us to be in a state of yellow? What gets open? What doesn't? What decisions will we have to make when we go out? What life changes? Each new day brings a new challenge. I remember Aunt Flora telling me often that every day was a gift from God. It was an adventure to live into, knowing that we didn't face it alone, but that God went with us. As the psalm writer reminds us, we have a God that neither slumbers nor sleeps. and he watches over us every hour of the day, from our going out to our coming in, now and forever. And so I invite you in the days ahead to make my Aunt Flora's prayer your morning prayer, as you anticipate the adventures that God may have in store for you and for us. Morning has broken like the first morning. Blackbird has spoken like the first bird. Praise for the singing, praise for the morning, praise for them springing fresh from the word. Sweet the rain's new fall, sunlit from heaven, like the first dew fall on the first grass. Praise for the sweetness of the wet garden, sprung in completeness where God's feet pass. Mine is the sunlight, mine is the morning, born of the one light Eden saw play. Praise with elation, praise every morning, God's recreation of the new day.